to envy me. Passing it off like CP3. Shawty, she calling me MVP. I be on time, it's something you ain't never seen before. They call me the Dama, really want my whole team to score. Damn, yeah, too icy, yeah, too clean, yeah, my zone, yeah, 2-3, yeah, got shooters that hit from deep, bust like Giannis, yeah, too mean. Bright lights like we at the garden, on P, don't get me started. Whole team walk through me to party. If I can't make the play, I'ma lob it. If you jump, that's right on your head. Had to put him to sleep, go to bed. I'm the star, drop 50 and left. From the logo, like I'm Steph. Put it up, knock him down every time. Going hard like my life on the line. Catch me on the coast, I would've down. Never losing, I put it on mine. Had to get out my shell, I've been laying low. They get red when it comes to the playoffs. They fight with me, no one's a KO.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Ladies and gentlemen, from La Casa de los Lobos, the Pit, here at the University of New Mexico, let's get ready to rumble!
Ed, I'm making sure you can hear me.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Hey, what a great way to start the show. My name's Ryan Tamori. Welcome to the Pit Press Live. Hope everybody had an amazing weekend. Thought it might get better for Lobo fan out there. I don't think it did. A lot to get to today. Before I do anything, I want to thank our sponsors, Dulce River Bakery and Coffee, Affordable Solar, Turquoise Desert Tap Room, Tim Baca Sr., Tim Baca Jr. over at Hydra Bar. Can't emphasize Tim enough. Affordable Service Heating, Plumbing, and Air Conditioning for your HVAC needs in Albuquerque and Rio Rancho area. Affordable Service has been in business in New Mexico since 1986, and it is still locally owned. During that time, they've served more than 40,000 customers, providing complete residential and light commercial HVAC services, including heating, cooling, electrical, and plumbing. Affordable Service takes pride in its staff and commitment to Albuquerque and Rio Rancho community. Visit them at Affordable Service. Busy show today. Before I introduce Ed Nunez, who I always have on the show. Ed, I forgot your name there. Fantastic. Clearly unprepared host. 4:30 as per usual on Mondays. Per usual. I always want to get his thoughts. I wanted somebody different last Thursday when the Friday when the Bronco Mendenhall news broke, and he was introduced today. We'll get to that. I'll play a little bit of that, and then we'll get into the basketball game. 4:30, everybody's favorite, Ned James. 5 o'clock, Greg Archeleta, formerly of the Albuquerque Journal and UNM Athletics. He worked, I think he was the SID for the UNM men's basketball team. I'll have to ask him, but he is a mentor of mine, and I haven't talked to him in a couple months now. So happy to have Greg Archeleta. I'm sure that name resonates with a lot of people. So excited to have those two guys on, but as always, I'm joined by a Lobo fan since 1970 and the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs, Mr. Ed Nunez. Ed, how you doing?
The hits keep coming. Saturday night, the 89-83 loss to New Mexico State. So you mentioned not a good weekend for New Mexico fans. It wasn't, but I've got to give the Aggies credit. And I thought in overtime after that goaltend, that would be the catalyst to push New Mexico over the top. They're a 20-point favorite. Aggies came out and, took it to them in OT, outscored them and outplayed them, outworked them, out-executed them, out-everything them. Coach Hooten looked like he was coaching a Final Four game. That guy coached the heck out of that game, man. Give him credit. So, yeah, that stung. That loss combined, with Bronco Mendenhall leaving, that loss really hurt the Lobos. It really did. That's a bad loss. So, I'm sure we'll get all into it, but it was a very bad loss. And one that I think, we'll get into later might have exploited New Mexico a little bit, but we'll talk about that, I'm sure, later.
We'll get into that. And the reason I wanted to have Greg Archeleta on was he wrote something last night about Bronco Mendenhall. Also, I read Rick. I've known Rick Wright many years now. He wrote a column in the paper that was Saturday or Sunday in the Journal. And I thought it was spot on. And I know a lot of people that listen to this show think I'm ruthless. I think a lot of people are mad. And we will start with Lobo football. And I keep meaning to use these because Eric did a great job on these. Here's Bronco Mendenhall at his Utah State presser today. I'm using it courtesy of Utah State Athletics. Here you go.
Yeah, results absolutely matter, but how we accomplish that, it matters even more. I care about these young people, who they become, what they do with their lives, how they play, but ultimately, if they're influencing this community in a positive way, if they're becoming amazing young men for their families, if they're able to contribute in society with all kinds of memories of championship experiences here, that looks like success to me. There isn't anyone on the planet that will have higher expectations for our players than I. The greatest gift I can give is that of extreme expectations. Some say high, and that's not enough.
Ed, when you hear that, first off, he looks giddy. He looks happy to be there. I don't remember what he looked like. I meant to watch it earlier. What he looked like at the UNM introduction press conference. He looks a lot happier there. And as I've mentioned on our show, he looks like he's beyond miserable. Had looked like he was beyond miserable here in Albuquerque. I think it's funny that you had a guy just leave a program. And again, I'm impartial on it. I don't blame him. But the demeanor is completely different. I understand the reasons. I can't hate him for that. And Jeff Symbieta said it on, side note, kudos to Jeff Symbieta, TCU, Louisiana. If you don't know anything about Louisiana, a lot of fun to watch. And TCU was in the national championship game 2 years ago, regardless of that result. So congratulations to him on that matchup on December 28th. He mentioned you all have the capability of leaving your job. Well, I mean, I've said that. Yeah, you do. Hindsight is 20/20 here. And I don't like to be that. I get enough shit on Twitter. I don't like to be that guy because when I'm wrong, I would like to let people know I'm wrong. I had a gut feeling he was a terrible hire at the University of New Mexico. I didn't like it at the time. I had a lot of people tell me how great it was, and I wasn't impressed. And if you go back and watch us or listen to us, I had mentioned, yeah, he won at UVA, he won at BYU. He hadn't done shit here yet. 5 and 7, as I said, they were exciting to watch, not improved in my mind. Defensively, terrible. I think it's very funny that you get like defensive coordinators and offensive coordinators who can't do what they were good at one thing. He was a defensive guy. I always think of Brian Billick. Brian Billick was an offensive genius, 98 Vikings, coached the 2000 Ravens to a Super Bowl on a team that won a championship, not scoring for 7 quarters. I'm not trying to go off on a tangent here. I really did feel deep down inside this was a bad hire. It felt weird. And I'm still not shocked, but shocked that he is gone after a year. I'm not trying to prove a point. I thought it was a unusual hire for UNM. Ed, you heard him talking about kind of the same spiel he gave at UNM in today's Utah State introductory press conference for Bronco Mendenhall. I want your thoughts.
Yeah, I won't say what I really feel like saying because I've always promised not to curse on this show, only because
I'm trying to get better about it.
Yeah, no. You know what? You know me, when we have private conversations, hey, man, yes, I have no problem with that then, but disgusted, sickened because he's got this smile. He said the same things here a year ago. Commitment, earned, not given, the community, we're going to be better. I have a special place in my heart for New Mexico where he had been here before. I'm sickened, seriously, seeing him. I don't, when I read, and you're going to have Greg on at 5:30 or 5, Greg Archuleta. I read his post, and he's been around a little bit. I read Rick Wright's article. He's been around a little bit. Rudy Chavez, super fan Rudy Chavez, who's been a Lobo fan. I mean, a real Lobo. I'm a Lobo fan, maybe not to the point he is. I'm not going to sit here and tell you New Mexico does everything right if they don't. I won't. Nor, I'm not. That's Rudy, though. So much respect to Rudy, man. Rudy does things his way. You do things your way. I do things my way. But when he came out and spoke out against Bronco, here, a couple things, though, for you. I disagree with you. I already told you. They were improved. For me, they're 4-7 last year, 4-8. They win one more game. They're predicted to win 1.5 games. That's an improvement. No matter, any coach is going to say at the end of the year, if he had stayed, Coach, we won 4 last year. The year before, we won 1 more. We should have won this and this. What's our goal for next year? You improved. So it's an improvement. Other thing is this. They were lauded for that hire. Last year, the consensus was it was one of the best hires in the country. You might have felt like it was weird, but everybody said, a lot of the pundits said it was a great hire because he had wanted Virginia. He had wanted BYU. He had had success in New Mexico's program, was not successful, hadn't been successful in a long time. As it turned out, they had another losing record, but they were on the cusp of a bowl appearance. And like Kurt Ross said, you imagine the mess this would have been if they had been in a bowl game with an interim coach, no quarterback, half those guys in the transfer portal. It would have been a mess. So when I see him, and I read again Rick Wright and Greg Archeleta, I've got my own feelings, and that guy, to me, I'm glad he's gone. Some people try to say, oh well, there's nobody that came to the games, this and that. Don't sign here. If he's miserable, like you said, give me $1.3 million. I can be miserable too. If you're miserable, don't take the job. I disagree with some of that. If he was that miserable, he wouldn't have signed a coach here. If he was waiting on a job, then he could have sat out another year. He left $4 million on the table at Virginia. We don't know why that happened. Who leaves $4 million on the table? You want to get as much money as you can from your contract that you signed. Nobody made him sign here. Nobody. Eddie Nunez did not put a gun to his head and say, you better come here. He wanted to be here. If he's miserable after a month or two, getting a win, man. I'm glad he's gone. I won't have any fond memories. I'll remember the success in Dampier, having a marvelous season as a Lobo fan. You can't say, hey, look back on it as a fan and say that wasn't entertaining. There were some great moments. I enjoyed the heck out of watching him play. You can understand he wasn't going to stay here anyway. There was no way he was going to stay. That was a pipe dream. So yeah, I when I see him talking about, oh man, that smile. You know what? Get out of here with that, man. Miss me with it. Miss me with it. Go ahead. You're gone. I don't even say good luck at Utah State. I just say I'm glad you're not here. You didn't want to be here. Fine. So that's the way I feel. I probably feel a lot stronger, but I won't tell you exactly what I feel. Nobody wants to hear all the expletives that I might want to say about it, because as a Lobo fan, you mentioned since 70, Joe Morrison left after a year. Okay, I look back on it, and Joe Morrison left after a 10-1 season, but I don't think anybody, back then there was not the coverage or social media or the irate people there might have been on Coach Morrison. So I can't compare it to anything else. You know what? He sold us a bill of goods here. He lied. He's a liar. As far as I'm concerned, I'm glad he's not here. Go be at Utah State and do what you do. And but I got to say this: you asked about how bad did he set the program back, and Greg said it too on his little post. He said it back. If you were in a ditch before, you're in the abyss now. You're in the abyss, man. And that's not to say I don't have hope, and I have to. I'm not going to sit there and say I quit. I'm not going to be a fan anymore. That I would never do that. Not till the day I die. I'll always be a fan. But the next hire, it's going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough to win here. We already know that. The quarterback's gone. The running backs are gone. The receivers are gone. A lot of the talent that they had is gone. So, who's going to come in here and fill those spots is the question. And so, yeah, you asked about it. Did it put it 2 steps back? They're in the, like I said, they're in the abyss now, and they're going to have to find a way out of it.
We're going to talk plenty of football, so I'm not going to harp on it anymore, and I'm sure people don't want to hear what I think. Again, I know hindsight's 20/20. When I'm right, I probably gloat. When I'm wrong, I'll let you know when I'm wrong. Again, I still just feel that was such a weird hire, and it didn't pan out at all for anybody. I was talking to my buddy Isaac Avalusea last night, and I'll make this quick. And he was like, people need to get over Loxley. And I was like, dude, we're not having that conversation here. We were talking about coaching hires, and, I picked up my history, which I still hope I held up right. History tends to repeat itself. But I think that this, I don't know where I forgot. I was reading the comments and I got distracted, and that's probably why I'm a terrible host. I think that it sets the program back quite a bit, and I just think it was a weird hire. And my buddy Isaac and I were talking about what the success Davey had, the unsuccessful season that Loxley had. Danny didn't get to a bowl game. So I don't know. I'm going to switch subjects there because I lost my
you were there. Isaac, obviously, your friend.
Avalusea.
I can't. But you were there. You were talking to him, and he talked about a lot. You were there. You got it together, man. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, Well, you threw me off, Eric Markham, because you write Ryan Romari, and then you wrote, "Oops, I meant to say Tyan Romari." So,
Hey, Eric's a big fan, right? I mean, we got
I know
a lot of big fans. So, but you know what? You're sharp, man. You know what you were talking about. You can multitask, and that happens to me too, though. If I see something, I'm like, oh shoot, man, I forgot what I was saying.
No, I'm still a man, and I'm not looking for any empathy or sympathy. Not empathy, sympathy here. I produce this show while we host, so sometimes I'm like, all the alcohol and the getting older just messes with me. Okay, we're gonna switch to basketball, and I want to use these. Because Eric put a lot of work into him, and at least you know what we're talking about. All right, I'm not going to read it. I need to stop reading comments when I'm ranting. Well, UNM was a 20.5-point underdog, which I thought they could cover easily because NMSU sucked, and I'll wrap that around. Losing to Pepperdine, losing to Bowling Green, got destroyed by Dayton, good team, got destroyed by UNLV, meh. I thought UNM was going to come back out after that San Jose State game and wallop them and get back on track. Boy, was I wrong. And my whole sentiment is We don't have as many people watching as we do with Kurt Roth, probably because people fucking hate me. But anyway, that is a at-large bid killer come early in Christmas. That is a bad loss. If you are at large, you are screwed. The committee will look at that, and it is bad. They have to win the Mountain West outright. VCU is a good A10 team, coached by Ryan Odom. That is a not guaranteed win next Wednesday at home. I look at this stat sheet, which I don't often like to do. I do use it a lot because it's content. Does this team think they're the Golden State Warriors from like 10 years ago? 10 of 32 from 3, 30 of 84. When I see that miss field goals, that's a lack of concentration and effort. And I know a lot of people have said it. I like Donovan Dent. Shut up. Don't talk to the officials anymore. You are at a point in the season where things are failing. Stop blaming the refs. Ed, you said it. Outcoached, outplayed. I didn't go. I watched on the Mountain West Network in the comfort of my own home. They are lucky they survived with San Jose State. I'm not here to be a hater. I picked this team to win this conference. They look bad, and it's happened fast. And I don't know if it has to go with the fight or if there are eyes on other prizes. But this season can turn bad and south quick, and all of the expectations have been flushed down the toilet. Ed, you are more X's and O's than I. You and Nick were there. Great pictures, by the way. Your thoughts on the game? You kind of hit on it, but before we get Ned on, I want your thoughts.
Okay, well, my son came up with some, some good stuff. We talked about this. They missed 16 field goal attempts in a row, and the UNM did after they were leading. They scored 15 points in 18 minutes between the first and second half. UNM had 33 with 8:35 left in the first half. They were 14 of 38 on layups at the rim. What does that tell you? They're short. They're missing. They're right there. The effort was there. I disagree with that. They were trying. But you know what? So in overtime, UNM started 0 of 8 from the field. They did not shoot. You mentioned it. Did not shoot well from the field. Nelly missed some easy ones, 7 of 17, 41%, true 3 of 9 from the field. Amzil, 0 of 5 from shots inside the 3-point line. Great stuff by my son here. These guys, 10 of 31 from 3. Amzil, 2 of 11. Nolan, 1 of 6. These two accounted for more than one half of the misses, 17 misses between them. 13 of 22 from the free throw line. Dent, 5 of 8. Nelly, 2 of 5. 6 of their 9 misses. Borovichinen, 0 of 2. Bottom line, they just not shoot well. And if UNM is as bad as they've been defensively against San Jose State and New Mexico State, they'll continue to lose games to teams they should beat. And that's from my son there a lot. He did some research and reporting. We both talked about it. And so a couple things. Now there was some talk about on our chat whether they run offense. They do. They run offense. Absolutely, they do. They run a high pick and roll. They let Dan either go, throw a lob to Nelly, read, and go to the rim or kick out. They weren't hitting shots. They didn't make shots. We saw the shooting. It was atrocious. So the offense, it'll look like they're not running offense if their offense isn't executing. On the other end of that, Carpenter, they kept setting the same pick for him, the flare pick at the elbow, the left elbow, right there by the free throw line. They did it 3 or 4 times. I asked CJ Nolan after the game if there was any talk of any defensive, coverage that were switching or they started switching picks the second half. UNM, my son mentioned that. They started switching on picks. But Carpenter destroyed them. Nelly's a little late getting out there, and Carpenter's a good player. He destroyed Nelly. What did he shoot? 7 of 14 from the field. Cook, when they needed shots in overtime, destroyed New Mexico. Hit corner threes in the overtime. So New Mexico is having a hard time guarding in space outside. They're bringing Nelly outside. He's having a hard time guarding in space. My son mentioned that. So I think all those things together. I got to say this now. You mentioned on the other end of this. Now, this NIL stuff, okay? This is just the truth. People can get mad if they want to, man. It's the truth. Donovan Dent is a great player. He's the best player New Mexico has. Now, sometimes they took him out in overtime, and the guy from the Lobo asked Coach Pitino, why is he out? Coach Pitino said he's tired. But you wouldn't think that guy would be out. Now, Dent and same in a way Patino is too. They're trying to elevate their NIL profile. Believe me, I don't know. I know people would maybe not believe that, but there's a catch-22 here. You want to win, and you do want to win, but you make sure that you got yours. So the NIL thing, because we don't know if Dent's going to be here, and I think Coach Patino, if they succeed, he's got a foot out the door too. This is what NIL has done. It's good and it's bad. I'm not saying they're trying to lose a game. Believe me, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying guys sometimes aren't thinking about what they need to do to win, and sometimes thinking about what it is they need to do, the hero ball part. That's why Donovan Dent was taken out. He's still their best player. The other thing is this is just another thing. He's not here anymore, but JT Toppin brings New Mexico to another tier. He's going to develop more. He's good for what? 2 lobs at the rim last year. It probably would have been 3 or 4. He's going to take you outside with a 15-footer. He's going to develop that in a 20-footer and get much better. He puts New Mexico on another tier. He's not there. So they replaced him with some guys. They're not JT Toppin. So they're asking Nelly Jr. Joseph to do a lot more inside, and he's not that. He's good, but he's not JT Toppin. And again, that's just here and there. Some people were lamenting that Jamal Mashburn wasn't there on Saturday, and he's not there either. This is the team that they have, but I'm telling you, they got exploited against San Jose State, and they got exploited against New Mexico State in guarding in space. They didn't do well against either team, and they better get it together quick, because as you mentioned, Ryan, this season could go south real quick, and that loss against New Mexico State will haunt them the rest of the season. And so they have to win the Mountain West outright. It's a challenge. You got something in front of your face now, and Coach Patino knows it. And let me tell you this, Ryan. He was a little mad after the game. That guy is a class act all the way. Looks you in the face when he answers a question. Doesn't snap. Isn't bitter. He's a class act all the way. I gotta give him a lot of credit there. He answered every question and didn't cut anybody off. He's a class act.
I agree with you there. He is really good with the media. I really like him. He doesn't really show any emotion. It's not used car salesman-esque, but he presents himself where he got an A+ in what is it? You take it in college, public speaking 101. He got an A+ in that. Plus he probably learned from the best. I mean, his dad's good. His dad was great in that press conference at telling John Rothstein to have sex with his wife at 6 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, I think that I agree with you, Ed. I don't. You get the week off. I mean, you have to rally, reset, and not rally, reset yourself. Figure out what went wrong. They play Western on Saturday. Again, no offense, they should probably roll them, right, Ed?
Easy. I mean, I wanted to be here for that game, but I'm in Silver City covering a women's game. But that's Western struggling. They're 1-7, so that should be a 125-86 game easily for New Mexico easily. And
then you get VCU on Wednesday night, next Wednesday night. Excuse me, in the pit. I and another thing that was brought up was they purposely only did one game this year. So you can't go and get revenge down in Cruces later this year. I always thought the home and away was good. Didn't care about the Ken Palm, threw all that out the window. I always thought it was cool that they played each other twice, because I think that's what basketball and this rivalry meant to this state. They flushed that down the toilet, and now they cannot avenge that loss this year. The Lobo fan has to wait an entire year, and they have to go down there. What was it? They didn't play in 2022, but they beat them in 2021. So they're 2-2 in their last 2 trips to the pit, and that was the Teddy Allen team and Chris Jan's team. And I say it all the time. Who's the last team to beat UConn in the tournament? NMSU first round, 12 over 5, 2 years ago. I don't know. I think that's a major black eye. They got to figure it out. And you have to run the table. And I'm not impressed with Boise State. San Diego State might be the same thing. It might be reload and conquer, because I don't think you want any part of Spectrum. They're playing well. Yeah, I don't think you want any part of Spectrum or Viejas. And you lost to Boise State last year. I know there's no Max Rice, but you did lose to them twice last year. So going up there, I didn't even mention it before we get Ned James on this. I do give kudos to the NMSU social media team. They posted Aggies win on the Instagram, and the caption was "earned, not given."
Cool.
So
burn,
yeah,
burn,
it was a
baby,
big burn.
burn,
I mean, I
burn.
gotta calls it as I sees it.
Oh man,
Well played. Yeah.
The unkindest cut of all, man. That whew. But you know what? Hey, right? To the victor belongs the spoils, and the Aggies. You know what? The worst part about it for me, you know, I hate the Aggies. You know that, I always have. I'll give them credit though. You know, give them credit. The worst part for me was hearing the Aggie fans at the end of the game. Aggies, oh man, that really burned. But they played better. They came out in overtime and kicked New Mexico's butt. I thought New Mexico, when they got that reprieve with that goaltend, would come out in overtime strong, and instead it was the Aggies that did.
By the way, you're not totally out of this New Mexico State basketball. Stupidest play I've seen in a long time. Don't go anywhere near the rim. At least let him maybe if he makes the shot, you don't look like an idiot. Incredibly stupid. I didn't even get to that. I could not believe. I got up and went to the bathroom because I thought the game was over. And I came back, and the ticker on the Mountain West Network said 73-73. So there we were. My name is Ryan Tamori, Ed Nunez. This is the Pit Press. We got Ned James coming up next. We'll be right back.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Welcome back to the Pit Press Live, or as I should probably call Everybody Hates Ryan Tamori. Happy to have our next guest on. He's joining us. And again, I always wanted to get his opinion every Monday. Happy to have him on. Wanted to change it a little bit last week with the end of the week because I knew I'd ask him to come on Monday. Former UNM quarterback. You can catch him on pregame, halftime, postgame shows with JJ Buck during the UNM football season. He's Baker Mayfield's #1 fan. His name is Mr. Ned James. Ned, how you doing?
Hey, doing great, guys. How you guys doing?
We are hanging in there. I don't even know if I talked to you. Well, yeah, we did talk to you after Thanksgiving. So happy. I'm just going to say it again. Happy belated Thanksgiving and happy Honda days and happy holidays.
Honda days.
Yes, happy Honda
days.
days. Yeah, happy Honda days. Terrell, there's my terrible comedy act. Ed, like I said, you'd be the only one in the front row. Well, Ned, I'm just going to shoot you straight. Where does UNM football go from here? And are you shocked by the news?
We only go up. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why people are so in their feelings, in their mentions, in their whatever over the departure of one Bronco Mendenhall. It's like, you know, I don't get it. I mean, maybe I'm just an old, cynical old man. I don't get the whole, crying over a guy who we essentially, took him off of food stamps and welfare and shaking his tin cup on the side of the curb. He was out of coaching for 3 years and we gave him a job. And, you have to excuse me when I say this, but, the guy left after 1 year, and it's no different than the outrage people felt. And, we have to go back and remember what happened when Dion left Jackson State when you start invoking religion and you talk about the kids and all that, you deserve to get smacked around a little bit if you leave. You can't do that. And then, you're talking out of two, both sides of your mouth. Bronco did that. He did a little of that. Where's the community? Where's the outrage from the alumni? Where's the outrage and the fact that we gave him a contract that was twice as much as the last coach? It's one of those things that I think he was just given just an unbelievable amount of grace from this community, and it's one of those things that I just didn't understand. I would have swore Bronco won 12 games last year. I mean, the guy wins 5 games, doesn't even get to a bowl game. We lose to a freshman quarterback playing for his first time, and Bronco's a defensive guy. And there is no outrage. I mean, there's empathy for the guy going back to his home. I don't care. He was shaking a tin cup last 3 years. He was out of coaching. We gave him an opportunity at a Division I, a Tier 1 institution. People need to be proud of UNM. I mean, it's unfortunate that people aren't proud of the fact that we are UNM. We don't, take a back seat to anybody. I mean, and we gave this young man an opportunity, or the old man opportunity. And what did he do? He kind of, gave us the Heisman, kind of stiff-armed us and moved on and, said some things on the way out. It's just unfortunate that this is the way of the world. Us old people, this is how we kind of give the kids an example of who we really are. And I think Bronco did a disservice in his approach. But hey, it's who he is. It's what he's about, and it says a little bit more about who he is. And I just don't believe in the grace that everyone is showing him. And if you do show this kind of grace, I want to see it shown to everybody.
Ed, I'm going to throw it over to you.
Ned, my brother, man, you're on fire.
I can't
today.
top that.
On fire. I got a Ned, the tin cup, and that's that image there, by the side of the road is I'm trying to, get that in my mind. Ned, I you know what? You and I talk a lot. You're a good friend. I think you probably know, you and I have said this, people are starved for a winner here. They thought they had one here. That's why people are a little bit upset that he left after 1 year. You're not surprised that he did that. You coached with him a long time ago. You know him a little bit better. Now, you said to me in our conversations that he's a good football coach. You can't deny that. But I think, people, you mentioned that some of the losses that he did have, you're right, against, a freshman quarterback. He was afforded a lot of grace. I will agree there. Afforded a lot of grace because he coached under Rocky Long. He coached here before. He wanted Virginia. He wanted BYU. You're not wrong there. Now, people are going to be upset because he left after 1 year. Like I said, Joe Morrison left after a year. I don't remember the outcry then. There wasn't
Ed, I don't mean to interrupt you. He was here 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
He had a 10 in 1 year. I think he left after that. Okay, so I think he's the only one to do that. And so people are going to be a little hacked off about it, Ned. Regardless of how I feel or how you feel, people are going to be a little hacked off. But I think, Ned, you know what? You're Lobo first, man. I love that your enthusiasm. UNM, we don't take a back seat. I love that, and you've got some optimism for the next time. But I guess I want to ask you that. What do you think? You've heard names. We've heard Matt Wells. We've even heard Urban Meyer's name. But what we haven't heard is from Fernando Lobo. We've heard a lot of speculation, but you would think he's got names out there. Names that he wants to interview and names that he might have in mind. Where do you think he goes from here?
Well, it speaks to, just, how starved we are for good football and good, entertainment when it comes to football at the university and in the state. Fernando Lobo is an outsider. He's coming into a new environment. He's just now getting to the state of New Mexico. I mean, he's talked about his last name being Lobo, and he's never been to the state before. It's just one of those things where, who knows who he's going to select as the next head coach. Obviously they're going to come with, the same kind of reverence that everyone gave the last football coach. And I don't know in particularly if that's anything good. I mean, do we get another guy who's just using this place as a stepping stone to get to something, to greener pastures, or et cetera, et cetera? When you're an alumni, it just rings differently. It just rings that how do we go about the process of selecting the next head coach? It's Fernando Lobo's ball. He gets to do what he wants to do with it. And, he's got to sell it the way he wants to sell it. And we'll go from there. But, there is, it's pretty quiet and no one knows. I mean, this is the first time AD. This is his first major hire at a major tier 1 institution. He's obviously probably have a lot of people in his ear. Which way he goes, no one knows. And we will find out here shortly because this is the buying season. And, you've got to get in the game one way or another. And despite whoever he hires, there will be criticisms and there will be, accolades. So we'll see what happens.
Ned, I got to say this, though. He's young, right? And I said this to Ryan on Friday. He's not jaded by anything. I mean, he's trying to make a name for himself, too. So I would think that the next hire, it's his first time at bat, right? He's got to take a big swing here. So we've got to hope, right? I mean, you're right about some of the things you said, but as, it's saying that a lot of people don't like, but it is what it is. He's here. So we have to hope that whoever he hires is that guy that, number one, is going to stay here, 3 to 5 years, get us to a bowl game or two, and get that stadium upgraded. It's a tall task, man, but he's the one that signed on to this job here, and he wants to make a name for himself too. So I think we have to have some optimism about it. I would think.
Yeah, and I'm an old man, so I'm a little cynical because I want to see, where the proof in the pudding. I mean, I've got to see something that's tangible, and when you're an alumni, it just rings differently. You just have to see something or feel something that kind of lends itself to be someone who really wants to be here. When you're not someone who really wants to be here and you're selling it as if you really want to be here, there's that skepticism from alumni. Bronco sold a bunch of goods to a lot of people, and he's getting a pass. And it's one of those things that I can see where, and I'm willing to debate anybody on this. Somebody come to the floor and say, "Hey, Ned, you are wrong," because people are telling me I'm wrong. I'm listening to the broadcasters in the state, on our radio shows and our newscasts, and they're saying I'm wrong. Hey, this guy is afforded some grace. I don't care what he did at BYU in Virginia. You guys all might care. I don't care that he came with a great pedigree. What have you done for me lately? What have you done for me? What have you done for us? Who cares what his pedigree was? Who cares what kind of family he came from? What have you done for Los Lobos? And he didn't do anything for us. I mean, he won 5 games. If 5 games is your measure of success, the next guy coming in who wins 5 games, I want to see him afforded the same grace. If he's someone that, we like, alumni. If it's someone that you like, and he doesn't win 5 games, I want the criticism. So it's a kind of a slippery slope here. But I understand where people are going with the whole, hey, the guy has to go. They started, they wanted to play on our emotions and our empathy by saying, oh, his mom's 93 years old. Really? You're going to tell me we gave a guy $1.2 million and he's worried about his 93-year-old mother in Utah, and that's where he wanted to be all along? I mean, that's what we're trying to do to get him off the hook. I mean, I'm not going for that one because he wasn't selling that when he was coming and getting the job. And I'm not trying to get on his mom. I'm not trying to say anything bad or negative about his family. But really, we're going to go. Is that what we're trying? Is that what we're doing now? Is that what we're trying to do to kind of, maybe it's to cover up our mistake of hiring him. I don't know. But it just really seems, a little short-sighted. The fact that a guy who won 5 games, we came in here and everybody was really maybe people were just disappointed, and the fact that he left after 1 year. And like I said, a lot of alumni guys were really excited, for the fact that he had come with this pedigree, and they're looking at me side-eye because I'm like, I don't care. I don't care what he did at BYU in Virginia. I'm excited that you guys all cared about it, but I don't care. I just want to see what he did here. That's why I kind of gave him his distance. I wanted to see what he would do here because I got yelled at in the park. And I hate to put my personal stuff out. I got yelled at in the parking lot by a prominent booster in this community about in the summertime when I said, why is he here? Someone tell me, why is he here? I mean, you tell me why he took this job, and then I'll tell you if I'm excited about him being here. And I'll just leave it at that because this booster came after me as far as, hey, this guy's getting ready to change everything here. Okay, well, why is he doing it? Tell me what his purpose is. Why? And they could not answer that question for me because every time they answered it for me, I came back with, well, that's not what I see. And so, that just lends itself to, just other questions when you're getting ready to hire the new coach. Who's getting ready, who's asking the questions. I just don't know. And what kind of questions are you asking? And can you trust the guy that you're hiring for the football coaching job?
I think one more point, Ryan, I'll turn it back over to you. I think all those points are valid, but Ned, as far as the way you feel about Bronco, I feel the same way as far as, what, don't let the door hit you, man. Get in the win. You want to be Utah State, go to Utah State. I can't even say for me that I wish him any kind of anything, just be gone. You wanted to be gone, be gone. But Ned, you come, you're I think your observation turned out to be way more right than anybody's, man. Because when he was hired, I know I was excited, because he had won. I know it didn't matter what he had done in the past, but you're from a different football world, Ned, a whole different football world than anybody I know. That's why we have you on, man, and much respect to you, sir.
Yeah,
always.
That's why I asked the question early on. I asked the question that summer, and I know people looked at me sideways when I said, well, why is he here? I kept asking, why is he here? And this is one of the reasons why.
Ned, I'm going to say it, and I'm wrong a lot, but I've said it a million times on our show, and I said it over the summer a lot. He won at BYU, he won at Virginia, but he hadn't won at UNM yet. And I think I got a lot of flack for that. And I've said this earlier on our show, and I'm not trying to repeat myself. I said hindsight was 2020. I thought it was a super odd hire. I know how great he was. I thought it was a super odd hire. I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm not an X's and O's guy, and you always give me crap for gambling on football. But again, I lose, so there's a reason why. But my question to you is, replacing all these players, and I think we're going to get the answer. I think I know the answer we're going to get. And it's not a doom and gloom question. It's just, if you were the head coach, where do you start? Where are you looking to replace Devin Dampier, Luke Weissong, Eli Sanders, half the team?
Well, roster construction is going to be important. The next coach is going to have to, he taking a salary cap structure. You're going to have someone who can tell you exactly how to construct your roster salary-wise. You can pretend that the salary cap does not exist, or there is a salary structure. You can call it a cap, you can call it structure, you can call it whatever you want. It doesn't exist. You're delusional. I mean, when you are bidding for players around the country, and there's several players that are in the portal, 30% of those guys, 30 to 40% of those kids, nobody's going to give them anything. They're going to be doing construction and sleeping on their mom's couches. But for a good portion of them, there's going to be bidding on them. And you're going to have to know how to construct the roster. Bronco was fortunate. He was fortunate to come into contact with the all-state quarterback out of Arizona by the name of Devin Dampier, who, with the combination of Jason Beck and a salary structure that they had in place, and the whole earned but not given, which moniker, which is absurd, in my opinion. They were able to get a maximum production out of a pretty good quarterback and a pretty stable offensive system. Now, defensively, they were worse than they were last year defensively and special teams wise. But at the same time, this offensive production was unheard of in the history of the school. So it worked. And you're going to have to, and maybe it comes on defense. Football is a strange game. You just don't know where your production is going to come. Your next guy may come in, he may get 5 dogs on defense, and these guys may just, wreak havoc in the Mountain West next year. You just don't know. And then you don't have to really rely too much on a super talent offense that's constructed with the run game based on the quarterback's ability to stay in the game and not get hurt and produce. Devin Dampier, it's going to be hard to replace him. The guy was an unbelievable scrambler. One of the least sacked team in the country last year, next to the military, to the academy schools. It was just incredible, in my opinion. And so, with all that being said, you're going to have someone who's coming in who's going to have to, reconstruct a roster, and it's going to take time. It's going to take, and you don't have time. It doesn't matter who the coach is. This is a win now business. You've got to win. And it doesn't matter what it looks like in the spring or what it looks like in the summer. When you tee it up, when you're saying set hike, you got to get us to 500. You got to try to find a way with the roster to get us to 500. Now, we're talking about academia. We're talking about student athletes. We're using the word kids all the time and students. But at the same time, this is a business now. They're putting statues up of guys who are winning games, not guys who are graduating kids. So we got to find a way to find someone who can come and construct a roster with a salary structure in place that's going to get us enough guys that are capable of getting us to a 500 season. So that's something that I think is going to be important. Nobody gets a pass. And like, I've said all along, there's lots of good coaches out there. And a lot of them aren't, they haven't been out 3 years, on the curb, shaking the tin cup, begging to come back in. And for some reason, we give this guy, an opportunity that there's lots of people that deserve opportunities out there. I wouldn't be opposed to us hiring another Hispanic coach or a Black coach or a woman coach. Find some diversity, do something different. I mean, be a trailblazer. It works in all different kinds of ways, and people have to think outside the box sometimes, and then come up with a salary structure to get players that can produce. And that's, there's no secret formula to it. It takes players. I think Bronco took advantage of that. He had a really good player in Devin Dampier, and it showed. I mean, they coached him up, and he had a system, and it worked. It worked to the tune of 5 wins. I don't know why we gave him 12 wins with how we're treating him as he's on his way out, because I frankly don't care what he did at BYU and Virginia. What did he do for UNM? And if he didn't do enough for UNM, then, I think, we can do a little bit better, and I think we will.
I love that. I got to quote Janet Jackson there. What have you done for me lately? I'm not trying to harp on it. I thought I didn't play high school football. I was, I'm a skinny shit. But you mentioned the whole earn not given thing. I mean, I had asked people like, have you ever had to earn your jersey? I don't know. It just felt like a staple that was going to be here every year, and then it was gone. I mean, you don't have to answer the question if you don't want, but you kind of
want to answer this question.
Go right ahead.
I definitely want to answer this.
Perfect.
Question.
Well, then
no,
why?
The reason why. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, why did you not like earn not given?
Because there's 6 jerseys that are hanging inside of the stadium. And I tend to respect people who have achieved great things. And there's a reason why those 6 jerseys are hanging on the side of the stadium, and they're not to be worn, because these 6 guys were chosen to be the special part of the football community that is the University of New Mexico football. Now, when you take those numbers and put them on players and say to those players, hey, look, you get to wear this special jersey, it's a little bit disrespectful to me, to those guys who earned the title of being one of the greatest players to ever play here. It's the Devin Dampier, and it's the Luke Weissong. And that's the one guy who's most disappointing about going into the portal, because he wore a jersey of a guy who's on the side of that stadium. And now you're going to transfer to another school because you want to try to make some more money? That's fine. But don't wear that jersey. You can't wear that jersey that's on the side of that stadium. You're not that special. Danny put him on those guys. I thought it was disrespectful from Danny, and I like Danny. And I thought it was great. I thought Danny was a great hire, but I thought it was ultimately disrespectful. I think it was disrespectful for Bronco to allow those kids to choose jerseys that are on the side of the stadium. Now, if you talk to the players who wore those jerseys and they say, okay, it's okay for them, then that's fine. But if you don't do that and you take those jerseys off the side of the stadium, and this is why when you don't have an alumni that's the head coach, or you don't have someone who's respectful of the past players or the past traditions of the community here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, at the University of Mexico and the state of New Mexico. And this is what you get. You get the disrespect on all ends. The disrespect of having guys wear those jerseys, the disrespect of a guy leaving after a year when he was on the side of the road, collecting food stamps. He didn't have any job. He was out at work for 3 years. And we take on a charity case. We give him an opportunity. I don't care what he did at BYU in Virginia. He's been out of coaching for 3 years. We give him an opportunity, and this is what they do. They spit in your face and they leave. Luke Weissong's my favorite player. I love Luke Weissong. You can't put him in a Hall of Fame, college football Hall of Fame player's jersey, and then the guy tells you to kick rocks and jumps in the portal and goes somewhere else. So it's that earned, not given. Okay, really? Okay, and now you're down the road. Okay, so yeah, earned. Now let's kick you down the road. You've been given a chance, and we gave you a life when you had no life, and so this is how you treat us. Okay, we should learn this lesson, and let's see if we if you fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, it's shame on us. So I'm just curious to see if we're going to allow someone to kick dirt in our face again.
Ed, I was going to ask on a couple other football topics not related to UNM. Do you have anything else UNM related?
No, Ned, bringing the fire as usual. We really appreciate your insight, man. But I got to ask you this: is there one name that you would like to see? You mentioned a lot of things, Ned. You always do. Is there one football coach you would like to see here?
Well, if it's Terrence Mathis, if it's Brian Urlacher, if it's Holman Wiggins, if it's an alumni, I'm always happy. You know how I am, Ed, when it comes to alumni. I'm partial to alumni. I know most people listening probably aren't. I'm partial to them. You could throw Ned James in there. I could bring a staff in here to get us to 500. So, but it's one of those things that I'm hoping that Fernando Lovo is aware of what impact the alumni have, and if he doesn't, I mean I'm hoping for the best. I mean most guys really do want the best for UNM and UNM athletics. Despite some of us who are partial to alumni like myself, but we just got to have a guy who can come in here and we can trust and believe what he's saying and says what he believes, and he's going to do something and leave an impact on the community. I mean, I think a lot of people disregard Danny because of the record, and Danny came in during COVID and a lot of other things, but Danny was turning the corner and he was a community guy. I mean I didn't like a lot of things about Danny's team staff, but Danny was a part of this community, and he really, really and truly cared about this community. And when and coaches come in and it's a business where the coach is narcissistic. I get that. You kind of have to be in order to be the head guy. You gotta have some bravado. You gotta have some stand upness to yourself. But it's just somebody who's going to have to be able to come in and leave an impact on this community. And more than just football ways and winning ways, and that's going to be a tough task for Fernando Lovo in his first hire as an AD.
All right, now I'm going to put you on the spot, Ned. If you were if you were offered the job, would you take it?
Oh, in a heartbeat. Yeah, I would say yeah, because I could put people in place that I know would get the job done. But even with me, there's hundreds of coaches out there that could do every bit as good a job as Bronco did. And I don't think people really understand that. I think people really felt like, hey, this guy Bronco really, they had such high hopes for a guy that had this pedigree, who had this, had these opportunities. But there's a lot of guys out there that could do just as good, every bit as good his job as he's done, if not better, given the opportunities. And so I'm all for just kind of trailblazing and finding ways. And I know most old guys like me are conservative and want to take the Bronco Mendenhall types even Rocky Long for that matter, as an alumni, would want him to come back. And but I don't know if that's necessarily the case. Rocky doesn't want to coach. Rocky didn't want to be a head coach anymore. He kind of left San Diego State. He could have had his brothers, could have been in San Diego State for as long as he wanted to. And he decided, hey, I don't want to do that anymore. And I don't care if he's up at Fort Lewis. I mean, he doesn't want to be a head coach anymore. He's publicly said that. But I'm just curious to see, what the university is going to do. You think it's, that's why I used to tease everyone over on main campus all the time. And I don't do it anymore. I don't want to get in trouble anymore. But I would tell them, I says, the enterprise of athletics is separate from the university. And I don't care what you think. You may think this is a part of the university, but it's not. And so they all believe, hey, I'm crazy, and Ned, we'll flunk a kid. I said, I bet you won't flunk the star player on this team, and that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of a rebel rouser over on main campus, but at the same time, you have to understand this is a pretty big multi-billion-dollar industry in college athletics, and despite the old timers hating this new thing of NIL and players being paid and guys jumping in and out of the portal and essentially no guardrails, but this is free market capitalism at its finest.
He's right.
And we're witnessing it here at UNM.
I appreciate that answer. I'm going to ask you two non-UNM football related questions before we get to our next guest. I don't want to make them wait, but I know you probably watch college. I know you probably watch both college football and pro.
Yeah.
Did you see the college football playoff and media types like me? I thought that the committee got it right. Every now and then I like some fresh new faces. I thought Indiana belonged in. I thought Boise belonged in. I mean, obviously, did you think the committee got it right?
Absolutely got it right. It's just that all the Alabama lovers out there are, but the majority of the country is celebrating because Alabama did not get in. So it's just one of those things where, the SEC, people think they invented football down in the deep South, but not so fast.
First college football game was ever in Princeton and Rutgers in Piscataway, New Jersey. Anyway,
yes.
I did not play. I mention it on here all the time. I am not on your level, but I completely understand it. I love Dan Campbell, but I'm going to use your word, and please don't hate me for it, goofy. I think he's got big cojones. And yeah, you play like that, you will cost yourself in the postseason. Can you see the Lions doing it, or is Dan Campbell, the head coach, in their way?
He's in the way. That's my opinion. But, a lot of other people don't see it that way. I don't think they play as well on defense. I love Aaron Campbell as a player. I don't think he's that great as a defense coordinator. I hate to talk bad about coaches. But I just don't think they have enough defensively, and the head coach is goofy. So it's just like Philadelphia. As much as I like Philadelphia, I think the head coach is too goofy. I mean, I'm an old man. I'm cynical. I mean, I'm conservative, and you could tell. That's why there's certain things, certain structures in place. It's why, even though I don't like the quarterback, I don't think the quarterback is that great in Kansas City. They have the structure. Mahomes is a good player, and their system. It's like that third down play. I could call that third down play in my sleep, because if you know anything about the West Coast offense, slot right, sprint right is coming on third down and short. And so that how they get to it, how they manage to use that, use formations or use motion or use whatever to get to it, they have a system in place. And any of the stuff that he does off of that, Kansas City is going to be successful with, even though the quarterback is, he's got a dad bod and he's playing, decent football, and is not necessarily the greatest pro quarterback in the NFL right now. But they find a way and manage a way to win the games, and that's how you got to win games. And so, to me, you can't afford goofiness in doing that, and that's what I call guys like Dan Campbell. So, but that's just my opinion. Doesn't mean things don't change. Us old guys, we're going to be dusting the wind here pretty soon, and these young guys will take over. So my theory could be out of the window, but I just like my head coaches to be a little bit more buttoned up than Dan Campbell.
Who's playing the best quarterback in the NFL right now?
Who's playing the best quarterback?
Who's quarterbacking the best? Sorry, I asked that wrong.
God, even though I hate the guy, Josh Allen's playing really well. I really think he's done enough, but I don't think his head coach is that great. I mean, I don't know what it is about the guy. He just can't. And he's had plenty of opportunities to be a head coach. So, they can't get it right on defense. So it's just little things like that. He's really doing a good job. I mean, the kid up at Detroit's playing good. Goff's playing well. Stafford is good. I mean, there's a lot of really good, talented quarterbacks. Burrow's good. I mean, there's a lot of, when you get into saying, a lot of people get in their feelings when you talk about quarterbacks because they want their quarterback to be the number one. Everybody wants to say Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL right now. Well, not so fast. I mean, you want to say he's on the winningest team right now, or do you want to say he's the best? I mean, when you say the best, okay, it's a little subjective in a lot of ways. And so I kind of, guys who, do things within a system, it's like the system quarterback. I mean, is Goff a system quarterback? Is he a great quarterback? Those things are subjective. And us old guys have our standards. We like the stiffs. And the RPO guys, the Lamar Jacksons, and the guys who, two-time MVP Lamar Jackson, and some of those type of guys, they're a little bit different for us. So it's hard for us to kind of, TJ Trout always gets on me because he's like, man, really, you don't like Lamar Jackson that much? So, weren't you kind of a Lamar Jackson type quarterback? And it's like, well, yeah, I read the triple, but when you coach and when you're in that business, and in the NFL the game is different than college. You got to throw balls on third down from that pocket. And if I don't see that from a guy, it's hard for me to kind of put him up there as number one.
Ned, that was probably the best 30 minutes of some of the best 30 minutes we've been doing on this show for 2 years. I'm going to bug you again. We had to get you on today. I cannot thank you enough. You know that. We appreciate your time.
Hey, appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me, man. I always like doing it.
Thanks, Ned.
Take care.
All right. That was Ned James from Lobo Radio Network. He's fantastic. Unfiltered there, Ed. It was great. We're going to take a quick break and we will be back with Greg Archuleta. I love Greg. I don't know how any of us can top that. So when we get back, Greg Archeleta, former UNM football beat writer for the Albuquerque Journal. He was an SID there. Happy to get his thoughts on Benedict Bronco.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
All right, one former man, Ed. I'm so glad I know Ned. And I mean no disrespect to our next guest because I said the same about us. I don't know how we ever top Ned. I don't even know how I top Ned James. Well, I don't top Ned James. Our next guest, and I'm very, very happy to have him on because he was a mentor of mine when I was at the Daily Lobo and running into one Mike Locksley, which I don't like to talk about much. And Greg, I'll tell you about what Isaac told me last night too. He is a former beat writer for the Albuquerque Journal. He covered Lobo football for years, predominantly the Rocky era. He was there for a little bit of the early Mike Locksley years, and he ended up working for UNM Athletics, was an SID there with the football program. And I am happy to have him on. He shot me a text with something he wrote on Facebook. His name is Mr. Greg Archeleta. Greg, how you doing tonight?
Good, Ryan and Ed. How are you guys doing tonight?
I am hanging in there.
Doing well, Greg. Good to have you, man.
I didn't queue up
Good
any.
to be here.
I apologize. I didn't queue up any Van Halen for you because I do love Van Halen. I even like Van Hagar. I don't know how you feel about that. That's another discussion for another time. You shot me a text last night, and I thought about you, and I hadn't heard from you in a while. And as I just told you in the commercial break, I went to bed early last night. I thought it was dreaming that you had texted me, as bad as that sounds, but you had written something on Facebook, and it was your thoughts on Bronco Mendenhall and how he left. I read Rick's column today in the Albuquerque Journal. I think that came out Sunday or over the weekend. I finally got to it. And I have to say, you guys are both articulate in what you said. You're in your craft. It's very, very good. But I'm just going to straight up get your thoughts on and what you wrote. And if you're not friends with Greg, I might just take a snippet of it and post it. But I just wanted your overall thoughts on Bronco. And did you hear him at the Utah State introductory press conference today?
Yeah, the good thing was somebody posted that on my posts on Facebook today, so I was able to look at it and see what he had said specifically regarding to the question of leaving UNM after a year. And so that gave me a little bit of insight, but changed my mind about what he did to UNM, not in the least. And so hopefully, I know Rick, being a reporter for the Journal still being paid by the Journal, you can't always say everything that you want to say. But since I am not affiliated with any media outlet anymore, was able just to express, it's on my personal Facebook page, just able to express the disappointment and flat out anger at Bronco's decision to leave UNM after a year. I just don't know who does that. And as I put it on my post, if there's any possibility, if your goal is to get back to Utah to be with your family, great. And take a job in Utah. Go be a defensive analyst for Utah State, for Utah, for BYU, for Snow College. Don't take another program that's, especially one that that is fledgling like UNM, where if something like that happens and you leave, you've set the program back, at least in my estimation, 3 years. I have not seen that. I mean, I know, the corollary is if he had a bad year, they could always run him out of town. But I mean, I listened to the introductory press conference from UNM last night when he came here before the season, and had tears in his eyes, and he said he was welling up. It was so emotional. Well, I guess it's not that emotional, and that's what really makes me upset about the whole thing.
You had the pleasure of covering Rocky Long, and his name was thrown around last year, and I thought being that it was one of Rocky's guys. Did you see a little bit of Bronco in Rocky when he took the job last year?
I think Bronco has kind of, and I'm not saying this to be in a bad light or anything. I think Bronco wants to be his own guy, and so I think when he left UNM after the 2002 season to go to BYU, and especially when he became head coach, I think partly because of circumstances, and then just partly because being out of Rocky's shadow, I think he wanted to be his own man. So I think their coaching styles are a little bit different. I will say, the basic things, running to the football, giving your all, doing that, the hustle, the effort, every play, I missed. I hadn't seen that in a while on both sides of the football. But I do think Bronco kind of wanted to forge his own path, which is why, when he got the job last year, I thought it was going to be a natural thing that he'd ask Rocky to be his defensive coordinator. Now, I don't know if that happened or not, but I thought that would be a perfect fit, but then came to think, well, then, Bronco may be under Rocky's shadow again, which he didn't want to do. So, I guess a long answer to your question, but I think Bronco, I mean, they're different head coaches. And so, similar defensive philosophies, but not identical. And I think Bronco, having coached other places, tailors the defense and the team to the environment, where Rocky was more of a system guy, and he also was in an era we could set up that system. Maybe nowadays with the portal, it might be a little bit more difficult to try to bring guys into a system if they're not going to hang around 2 or 3 years like they used to.
Ed, I'm going to throw it over to you.
Greg, I think, I read what you wrote last night. And, Ryan, I've been a fan since 70, man. I remember Rudy Feldman, Bill Montz, all the coaches, Mike Shepard, all of them, Dennis Francione, all of them. And, it's tough being a Lobo football fan. The Lobo football fans, real ones, the town around here, some of the fans are kind of apathetic towards Lobo football. But I think, when they hired him, I said this to Ryan and even to Ned, there seemed to be hope because he had been out of coaching. He had had success there at Virginia and BYU. And we had guys on the show, Curtis Flakes and Landrick Brody, that had played when he was here. Mike Mahoric, they swore by the guy, man. They swore by him. In fact, Landrick Brody had said there was guys that wanted to be on special teams where he was coaching. And, that's a kamikaze unit. So when you're hearing that, you're thinking, hey, okay, he can coach, right? But I think what you wrote, and I read it twice, it really, I told you, it really, and what Rick Wright wrote as well, spoke for a lot of people, because it's a betrayal. Your Benedict Arnold, Benedict Bronco rang true to me, man. To me, even when I saw him speaking this today at the Utah State press conference, I'm like sickened to even see him speak, man. I am. You want to be there, that's fine. But like you said, you came here saying all these things about earned and not given, commitment, tears here when you were announced at the press conference. And I think the other thing, Greg, that you said that really, really rung home to me, and it's sad, put us back 3 years. And we all know UNM football is not a program that was just kind of seeing some light with the 5-7 record on the cusp of a bowl bid. You were hoping for better things. But I got to say, what you said about putting us back 3 years is really, really sad. So we got to hope that Fernando Lobo, his hire, he hits it out of the park.
Well, and that's the thing, Ed, right? So I think some coaches now are questioning, and I've seen the questions not from coaches, but just in the media in general. Well, why is Bronco leaving UNM for Utah State? And so the insinuation there must be something going on here behind the scenes that nobody knows about. And I do know the one thing I did notice about his press conference today, he did note about how empty the stands were when the Lobos beat Washington State. And so I guess the few people that stormed the field, I did sense that. So, but, if you build it, they will come, right? Isn't that what they say? And again, like you, I was, everybody was excited last year when Bronco was coming here, and the guy can coach. As much as when you put your feelings aside, the guy can coach, and you could see that this year in the Lobos. That's why I think all of us were excited for the future, and again, Bronco's his own man. I'm sure he's doing what he thinks is best for his family. But not being in college football, to me, you just don't leave a program after a year, a fledgling program, a program that's struggled. If there's any, if that's not your end destination, if you don't want to stay there 5 years? If you haven't played that scenario out in your head beforehand, like if he's at home with his wife Holly, which he always referred to as like, okay, I want to take this Lobo job. What happens if BYU, Utah, Utah State, Utah Valley, whatever other Utah schools are out there, what if that job opens up? Do I want to stay in New Mexico? And maybe that is too much for us as Lobo fans to ask, but you have to ask that question. And if it's hey, I might leave, then you can't. To me, you can't take the Lobo job. You cannot leave them high and dry after a year, no matter how successful, no matter what you did. That's just not an honorable thing to me. I think had the AD known last year, had Eddie known that Bronco, that was a possibility, we'd have another head coach. Now, we already had the year that we had, maybe not, but then we're at least in the position to build upon 2024 rather than having to start over and then having all these players leave into the portal. That's the other thing, is these players now is like, oh, now we got another head coach. Why should I stay if the head coaches are only going to stay a year? So it's just a bad look overall and all aspects of it. And again, Bronco, like I said, Bronco's not going to lose any sleep over what I said, but it's just very frustrating and really makes me very angry that he could do that to a place that he says is so special to him.
Arch, I got to ask you this too. I guess Fernando Lobo, he's new. He's going to want to make his mark here. He's 36 years old. We've heard names. Matt Wells has been mentioned. Ryan has even mentioned, do they give Urban Meyer a call? I wouldn't touch Urban Meyer with a 50-foot pole. I just wouldn't touch him. Is there any, and again, it's different coaching now in football, this NIL, when you were covering the Lobo beat. Is there a certain name that you would like to see come here and be the next head coach?
Well, to me, it's got to be a guy that wants to be here. And, we all say that, right? And Bronco supposedly wanted to be here. But, that's why, obviously, Urban Meyer, if he wanted to come here, it's only as a stepping stone for the next thing. So he might be gone after a year as well. At least Bob Davie, who, I worked for and quite frankly didn't get along with, at least he stayed and built a program. Now I also saw the tearing down of that program, but at least he stayed and he was committed. So if you're going to get a name, make sure he's going to want to stay at UNM for more than 2 years. So my thinking is if Holman Wiggins, Zach Arnett, some guys that have some ties or want to be here, that's where I want to go. If Urban Meyer says, hey, I'll sign a contract right now that if I'm not here 5 years, I owe you guys $20 million, then fine. You got to set up the contract that it's impossible for them to leave. And if you have to lose coaches that way to make sure that you get a coach that stays more than 1 year, so be it. Let's find that guy.
Arch, one more question. I'll turn it back to Ryan. But you know what? This NIL, right? This NIL, and the way the portal is and things like that. Now, we had Glover Quinn and Heath Ridenhour on. We had Heath Ridenhour on our high school show, my son and I. And Glover Quinn said this, that if any player did well here, so Heath Ridenhour said the same thing. They're going to use it as a stepping stone. Now, is New Mexico doomed for that? Because I said this about Saturday night, when the Lobos lost to New Mexico State. And Donovan Dent is a wonderful player. But I think sometimes, with the way things are, he wants to increase that NIL profile. Sometimes, play in hero ball. Look, I'm not saying they don't want to win. I'm not saying that. Coach Pitino, if he does well, it's probably out the door here, Greg. Is New Mexico doomed for that? In other words, this is just a stepping stone. And if they do well, they're gone. Dampier gone. Wysong gone. All these guys gone. That's what Glover Quinn had said. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the atmosphere we're in with college football right now, which is why you've got to make the hire. The coaches got to stay, right? You've got to have some continuity, especially here. God bless Danny for trying. Just didn't get the job done. I was hoping that, he wanted to stay, but you got to have some continuity because there's no continuity with the players anymore. And the only way you can do it is start getting a reputation and building the program. So even if you start over year after year, at least the ones that stay and have some foundation, maybe you can get something out of it where you do turn it around so the players can earn enough here to want to stay here. The really sad thing is the players that are from here, like Luke Weichsong, leaving for the money. You would hope that at least if it was close, they would consider staying. So, I agree with you, Ed. I think it is a revolving door situation that, UNM caught it when they were the football program when it's at one of its lowest points. And so it's going to be incredibly difficult to build it, which is why I lean for, please make the contract so the coach is inclined to stay here 3 or 4 years. And if it's a kid that with New Mexico ties, whether he went here, coached here, whatever, all the better.
We're joined by Greg Archeleta, former UNM football beat reporter for the Albuquerque Journal, UNM Athletics SID, and met him as I was coming up the ranks to learn how to sell printers and computers. But I make more money doing that than in journalism. When I was, I don't know, a young drunk writer at the Daily Lobo. I don't want to harp on this, Greg, but I guess I'm going to pose 3 scenarios for you that are probably most recent in UNM fans' heads, which is I still to this day, and my good friend Isaac Avalosea, we were talking about it because somebody had posted on Twitter blaming this guy, and it was a picture of Mike Locksley. I have described that as an extinction level event, an asteroid hitting a planet on how to destroy a football program, because you and I saw it firsthand. Was the hiring of Mike Locksley, Steve Alford leaving, or Bronco Mendenhall worse? I know that's like a really tacky question on my part that I know you, but I mean, they've all taken place within the last, 15 years. What would you think one is the worst? I think basketball has recovered quite nicely. Bob Davie did get to a bowl game and win. But was there one that's worse in your mind?
That's a great question, Ryan.
Don't let our listeners know that.
I hadn't thought about Bronco in the context of worst decisions. My first impression was, since I was close to the football program, was, and like you said, I know your relationship with Mike Locksley, so you blame him. I blame the AD for hiring him.
I don't mean to interrupt you there. I don't mean to interrupt you there. I have, as I've gotten older, a little, maybe hopefully a little bit wiser, I blame Paul Krebs. I do. I really do.
Yeah, and just the thought that going 8-4, 9-4 wasn't good enough, and if you think that, fine, but you better be damn sure that the coaching hire to replace that guy is going to get you 11, 12 wins. And the first question I got after Mike Locksley was hired from some other beat writers or people that I knew was, hey, doesn't he party with college kids? So that told me right there that Krebs didn't vet Locksley the way he should have. And so, to answer your original question, yes, both football and basketball recovered. I think now we'll have to see, who Lobo, Fernando Lobo can hire for this. So I think that's not the answer. But I still have to think that Alford leaving was a bigger deal just because basketball is still king here. Now, obviously, me personally, I would have liked to see Rocky see it to its end, have a successor, but see where the program would be now off of that. But I still think Alford leaving, because they were so close to being San Diego State, right? The national power, and maybe it's New Mexico playing UConn for the national championship a couple of years ago. I know, the postseason woes were a big thing with Alfred, but they had the talent. It was right there. Alfred could have run for governor of New Mexico. He had his run here. And I kind of get why he left for UCLA, because it's UCLA, but I mean, he could have done anything he wanted here. And you saw within 4 years he's out at UCLA. And so I think that is still probably the bigger loss for the Lobos, is having him leave rather than the Mike Loxley hire, which was really bad.
I think some of the AD can be blamed on Alfred leaving, or so I've heard. Grumblings there. That's a long time ago as well. I will say this, Greg, that I met a gentleman who was a University of Maryland alumni at CBS in New York, and it was like the Maryland alum and the Maryland fan base were like, he got us to 3 bowl games in 1. We don't care. Now, obviously, they were 4-8 this year, and then he had his spat with James Franklin. But I think I would say this deep down inside, and Isaac and I have talked about it. And again, it's something I'm not proud of because I was at a bar. Not that I was ever going to go to bars looking for fights. I was going to a bar to sulk in my sorrows and try to watch a Mets game, which is exactly what I was trying to do that day. But deep down, Isaac and I were talking about it, and we just were like, I don't think he was that bad of a guy. For somebody who struggled with alcohol, he probably should have stopped drinking. But you are your own worst enemy. And I certainly thought it in that case. And that's not here nor there. I don't know if he's necessarily that bad of a guy, but I will say this: when I was 22, 23, it scared the living shit out of me. But I want to ask you something, Greg, because you covered the football program and you saw the heyday of Rocky. And I got to quote Ed here: you just don't see 9 and 4 seasons grow on trees. They had 2 phenomenal wide receivers. They had a good quarterback in 07, and they beat a quarterback who ended up basically becoming an all-pro and was on the doorstep of 2 Super Bowls and got to 1 in Colin Kaepernick and shut him out. Yeah, 23-0. But where was I going with this question? The stadium itself. I remember 20 years ago when I was in high school, and I say this on our show all the time. And I'll throw my friends' names out there. My friend Stephen Pena and my friend Mike Mates. We lived and died with Lobo football, and I'm sure you were there for that Utah game in 03. But what are your ideas on how you can get fans in the seats?
Well, this goes back, I think, to the coaching hire, and I think the difference between Rocky and Davey when he built it back up. So Rocky, I remember countless stories of people saying, "Hey, I was at Waffle House. Hey, I was at a restaurant, and Rocky Long was there." And I just wanted to say, "Hi, coach." And then he ended up having me sit down, and he bought me a Coke. He bought me lunch. Rocky bled cherry and silver. I think that reflected on his players. I think if Urlacher played for Davey, he would not have donated money for the practice facility. I think you need someone that bleeds cherry and silver, that produces NFL players like Rocky did, and then those players start to give back to the program, which is really important nowadays where money is a huge thing. And then also the improvements of the stadium, because, let's face it, what improvements, the south end zone now looks different, right? But, I thought it was going to be closed and we were going to have a 50, 60,000 seat stadium. And you go there now and it's still, to me, no offense to the facilities guy, it's still just a second-rate facility. And so the combination of, losing teams and not having a great experience at the game, you need someone that's a salesman. Bob Davey was, he had a great idea of bringing the triple option, but he wasn't a salesman. He didn't want to go out and talk to the people. I know that firsthand. When I was his SID, he thought that was an annoyance. You need somebody that, again, in my opinion, like Rocky, that bleeds it, that gets the people excited. To me, it's no coincidence that you look at the largest crowds, out of the top 10, I'm sure half of them are under Rocky, because he loved the program. He got the Albuquerque fans excited about the program, and he won. Now, his sin was, he got to 9-4. People wanted more. And maybe he just couldn't deliver that, but he had it on the precipice too. And you need somebody like that to reinvigorate the program. So, obviously, Fernando Lobo's got his ideas about how to do it, but you just need someone that's going to sell the program to the fan base. This is not a place where we have, millionaires, billionaires that are going to contribute to the program. This is truly a grassroots campaign that we have to start over and build up from the ground up, get players committed to it, get players to the NFL, get fans excited. Again, just structure the contract so that the coach can't leave in 1 year. That's the bottom line.
Ed, do you have anything else?
Yeah, Greg, just real quick, one quick observation. Rudy Chavez, and we talked earlier today. He reached out. That guy's a super fan, as we know, and even he took Bronco to task as well. So that kind of tells you, I think, with what you posted, with what Rick Wright wrote, how kind of Lobo Land is feeling. Because I don't know, I'm a big Lobo fan, but I'm not going to just tell you they're great if they're not. And Rudy, you can't deny. He's probably top 5 Lobo fans of all time. The guy's a great fan, right? I mean, no matter what they do, he's up. He's all in. And he came out with some stuff today or yesterday, and took Bronco to task. Yeah, called him a charlatan. And if that guy's is not in your corner, that I think tells you a lot right there. I really do.
Well, it just tells me that don't meet your heroes, right? And I guess Bronco showed his true colors. And I don't mean to dump on Bronco like this is just abhorrent behavior on one man. This is college football. There is no loyalty anymore. And what UNM needs is loyalty. So the last guy in the world I want to see is a guy crying at UNM's press conference saying, oh, welcoming home, my son was born here. And then a year later, you're out the door. No, thank you. So, I like I said, it just showed me that, Bronco is a typical football coach. It's, you could say, if it's about family, great, whatever. But again, then don't take the UNM job. I mean, you think about what the rubble you're leaving behind. It can't just be all about you and your family. And I know that's, people are saying, no, it is all about me and my family. But no, you've got to be some kind of conscious a little bit about what you do, and what the commitments you make and what you do by your actions. And Bronco, for all his, family talk, well, the Lobo family was his family too, and he just completely turned his back on them, and that's something I can't forgive.
No, I agree. That part I agree with. That's big. You covered UNM for a long time, and I asked Ed this. I did it again there, Ed. I'm sorry. It was probably about as bad of 72 hours as you can get. It was a bad week. Had you ever seen a week that bad in all your years of, I guess, covering UNM or being a part of it?
Well, I mean, I know because, the circumstances when I was there were different. I mean, you didn't have the portal. You didn't have, certainly, I can't remember a time where the last time a Lobo coach stayed 1 year, and where he wasn't run out of town or whatever, or it wasn't, an interim coach. I like Ed. I was at the Daily Lobo during the Mike Shepard years, and I thought that was the low. And then I was there for the Loxley years, and I was actually as SID for a couple of weeks. And I thought that was low. But just this thing, I think what what is so frustrating about it was there was hope. UNM had hired the right guy. They'd hired somebody that had coached at UNM. He knew the challenges. He accepted the challenges. Every other place that he'd stayed, it was, multiple years, and then he up and leaves. So that's what makes this, I think, worse than everything else, because, by the time Locksley was done, get him the hell out of Dodge too. Shepard, the same thing. Everything was pointing up this year, and the coach just turned his back on the program.
He is a former UNM football beat writer for the Albuquerque Journal, worked as an SID for UNM football. His name is Mr. Greg Archeleta. I cut and pasted what you cut off your Facebook page and kind of showed it while we were talking here. So, Greg, I hope you didn't take offense to that either. But I can't thank you enough for texting me. It was a pleasant surprise. And on such short notice, I really thank you joining our show today.
Oh, my pleasure, guys. Like I said, I was telling everybody, this has been a therapy session for me, so I appreciate you guys having me on. So if you want to send me a bill, go ahead.
Yeah, no, we're good there. We appreciate your time. Greg, happy holidays, happy New Year. Appreciate you.
To both of you as well. Thank you, guys.
Take care, Greg.
Greg Archeleta from the former Albuquerque Journal beat reporter. UNM SID. Ed, what did you take away from both of those conversations? I thought they were great. You had, I think, one both very heartfelt, one a little bit more unfiltered, which we love. But I thought Greg was also on point. What'd you take away?
You know what? Both of them, you mentioned Ned and Greg, they, Ned being in the position he is, unfiltered, untethered, Ned James live, man. So, I think I really took it, again, when I say he comes from a different football world, he coached at the pros. So when he talks about hidden yardage and things like that, we get a lot out of him in what he with his football knowledge. He doesn't pull any punches. He doesn't, about what he feels about Bronco. Now, I may disagree because when Bronco came here, I thought, hey, he's wanted Virginia and BYU. I'm thinking as a fan. Ned's thinking, what has he done here? What will he do here? And he turns out he was right. So I really enjoyed talking to Ned. And as far as Greg, I've never spoken to him. We both wrote for Enchantment Sports, and I'm not on Greg's level as a writer at all. A couple of years ago, but I enjoyed reading him when he wrote for the Journal. And look, these are heartfelt feelings. What he felt about the betrayal. He's been around Lobo Land as an SID, as a writer for the Journal, and that's the way he felt. So when I read that and I read it again, I'm like, that's kind of the way I feel. The way what Rick Wright wrote. Rick gave him a little bit of an out with a 93-year-old mom, and Ned James wasn't having it. Ned said, "Hey, if you want that, he wasn't going there." So reading that, and then even hearing what Rudy Chavez said, and Rudy again, remember, super fan. He got mad at us this summer a little bit, and that was in the past. And he's like, "Hey, Bronco's going to do great things here." When we were in Las Vegas, I don't know if you remember. One of his comments was,
"I do."
He was a little upset with us. Look, nothing against Rudy, man. Rudy, like I said, I may disagree. I'm not going to be super fan and just say they're great when they're always going to win the Mountain West if they're not. That doesn't mean I don't love them. You know how much I love the Lobos. I love my Lobos, man. There's no doubt about it. So, I think, Ryan, you mentioned this about Ned, and a friend of mine said, you guys know how lucky you are to have Ned James on the show with his knowledge, and we are lucky. He comes on every Monday and gives us what from the heart, right? He speaks from the heart. Having Greg Archeleta on, that's another great guest. You've known Greg for a long time. You mentioned to me how much his mentorship meant to you when you were a young journalist, man. You learned a lot from him. So I thought they were both great guests, and I enjoyed listening to both of them.
Like I said, it was a pleasure to hear from Greg. I went to bed early last night, and I woke up like in the middle of the night, and I was looking at my phone, and it was a text from Greg. It said Gregory Archuleta, and I was like, "Am I dreaming?" And then I woke back up, and then went to the bathroom, and then laid back down because I had some time. And I looked at my phone, and it was Greg. And I went to Facebook this morning, and read what he wrote. And I rarely get on Facebook. It's once in a blue moon. So that was a pleasant surprise. I'm really glad we had him on.
One more thing, Ryan. You know what
Go
I
ahead.
think when he says about therapy, you want to talk to like-minded people that have been around. You were a fan too. You were a big fan. You said it. So when things like that happen, I'm talking to my wife and my son and I go back and forth. Ned, Greg, people that have been around and feel Rick Wright feel the way I feel. About even seeing. I'm not kidding you. Seeing Bronco talk today and smile. It's like, you know what, man? Get lost with that crap, man. Get out of here with that. I don't want to hear it. I want to see him. I don't. Now, Greg is right though about the program. It's already. What did I tell you the other day about Timon and the Lion King? Let's talk about a fixer-upper, right?
Yeah.
To the new coach, and it's even worse now. But you know what? As an optimist, I'm not a Pollyanna though that sees things just with rose-colored glasses and says everything will be great no matter who the coach is. I know better, but I still have to look forward and saying who's gonna be the next coach. You have to trust Fernando Lobo, who's in a tough position, but this is the job he signed up for. So I got to hope. I have to have hope. Otherwise, if I just say, you know what, they suck, it's never going to be any good. I'm old, man. I'm older now. So, I don't know how many more years I have to enjoy Lobo athletics. I'm hoping for, a long time, but that's reality. So I have to hope for the best and hope for Fernando Lobo. They brought him in here for a reason. Hope that he makes the best hire and that new coach there's going to be questions about him, the trust issue, right? Hey, Bronco left after a year. What's going to keep you from leaving? That people are going to naturally ask that. So there's a lot of work to be done. And Fernando Lobo has his first big challenge and didn't even get to really have that grace period of enjoying things, right? It's right in front of his face, but this is what he signed up for, and then losing Saturday night at the Pit. And you mentioned, Ryan, that's a tough, bad loss, man. As much as I love my Lobos, I know it. That's a bad loss, and they're going to have to find a way to recover.
I'm going to go to the comments real quick before I, hold on. What you're talking about coaches, and you were talking about a bad loss, and I'm sorry, I'm changing topic. But when Greg said the first question that was asked to him about Mike Locksley was, did you know he partied with college kids?
I remember that.
I had heard stories about Locksley out and about all the time. And when we were at the Daily Lobo, I know it's 14, 15 years later, we tried to catch him. And I'm going to tell this story because I had family, I had people that we knew in the media that ran into him. I guess he lived at Imbibe. He loved Imbibe. And we had heard that he was at TD's a lot. And I went with a couple friends and just to see if he was there that night and talk about investigative journalism. It takes you to a strip club. But yeah, I heard he was at Imbibe, but I thought that was funny. That was great. And then I'm going to go back to the basketball comment, but I got to go to Eric Markham. Ryan, put the cherry and silver on, bro. Be a Lobo. I do this show objectively. I think people hear what they want to hear. And Eric, I'm not picking on you purposely. Does anybody not realize that I said I lived and died with the Lobo football team 20 years ago? We sat right behind the bench. It was the best part of our week. The 2004 season meant a lot to me because my dad had just passed. And I thought Rocky was great. I think there was a little part of me that wanted to see him go. But I really lived and died with that football team. And now I have the pleasure to talk to a lot of those people that guys that played on those teams. You don't understand, Ed, what it is a pleasure to have Ian Clark on. You don't. And he's been really cool. And I like his takes. I think he's himself. I think he's genuine on here. So I appreciate that. I know I get on here and I talk a lot of I give my thoughts, and I'm not, again, I mentioned this on the last show, I'm not here to be Skip Bayless or Stephen A. Smith. It's cringe. I don't make $1 million do this. This is who I am. And again, what I've dealt with Mike Locksley, yeah, I'm jaded. But once again, if you heard me I picked the basketball team to win the conference, and I wasn't just saying that. It was things I learned and gathered. I knew they would be good from what we learned in Vegas. But when you win, it's all gravy, and when you lose, it's straight to hell. And that's how I transition here, Ed, with the basketball program. Yeah, I think it was truly. I thought that was a really bad loss, and as I mentioned, who New Mexico State has lost to, just the way they came in here and did it. And I think there was these guys get paid now. I think there was a little bit of arrogance, and it was like, let's get through this game. Let's get out of here. And they paid the piper, man. I mean, you that's your rival who is not good, and Vegas thinks you are 21 points better than, and you get completely decimated. And I know they beat UCLA, but think about this. Who have they beaten? Cut off the Mountain West tournament last year. Who have they beaten and how have they lost since Clemson? It hasn't been pretty, man. I don't know if you agree with that, Ed.
Well, they beat USC, but I mean, is USC, really any good? I would see what they've done since. They didn't look good against New Mexico.
Jacob told me that they're already calling for Musselman there, that it's a joke.
Think about how bad that is. Musselman was supposed to be the savior over there. So, no, you know what? Like I said, look, these things pain me to say this, okay? But you bring me on here to be objective, not to be a homer. I'm not. I'll tell you the truth. I thought they got exploited a little bit against. And my son said the same thing, and he had a lot of great points on the write-ups and stuff. Some of the stuff he sent me. They did. They got exploited against San Jose State, and they got exploited against New Mexico State. But like I said, they didn't change the defensive coverage on Boston. He just kept ringing them up. Nelly had a hard time getting out there. That's going to be the playbook if other teams have bigs that can stretch. They had a hard time getting out there and guarding in space. Nelly can't guard guards. Donovan Dent, how many layups did they miss? My son brought up a good point. They must have missed a lot of shots at point blank range. The other thing was this. I thought at the end of regulation with that goaltend, New Mexico would be the more energetic team in overtime, and they were gassed. I asked Coach Patino that at the press conference, and he said that we were tired. And, so that took a lot out of them to make that comeback. And remember, New Mexico State was leading by 15 at one point, and New Mexico tied it at the end of regulation, and they didn't have anything left for overtime. New Mexico State came out and took it to him in OT, man. That Cook guy, geez, he hit some big shots. So we had a hard time guarding. New Mexico had a hard time guarding in space, and they've got a lot of questions right now. And, a lot of people are trying to say that I'm reading that, the fight chemistry is wrecked. I don't buy that. I don't buy that one bit. The incident was between we don't know who and Shane Doma Sanchez, who's no longer on the team. I don't buy that it wrecked chemistry. He's not on the team anymore, and he didn't play anyway. He's a walk-on that was hurt. So we don't know all the particulars. But the player that was involved, one of them is not playing anymore. So he's not on the team, and he wasn't a contributor anyway. So I don't buy that. I don't. So, but I do say they better figure it out soon, because other teams are going to have the same playbook if they have good. The Aggies, what kind of personnel did they had just lost to Abilene Christian, man? 78-70. They had lost 5 straight, and they come here and put it on New Mexico. They did. So New Mexico's got a lot of questions right now. Season's not over, but they're still 7-3. But that was a killer loss, man, and one they're going to have to recover from.
They do not play this week. The UNM men's basketball team. By the way, the Lady Lobos lost, got swept by the Aggies. So there you go. Not good here in Lobo land. UNM does not play this week. They have a bye week. They play Western on Saturday, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show. I bought new lights. I don't know what I'm doing. Again, once I was a rider, I got to figure out how to make myself look bright. Let's see if that works. Maybe not. I don't want the glare. Anyway, that might be a little bit better. I don't know. Western New Mexico on Saturday. I believe tip is at 2. It's on the Mountain West Network. ESPN said 5. I trust Action Network. And then VCU's next Wednesday night. And then you round out, I think, after that, I mean, you're going to get into the slate of Mountain West Conference play. It's VCU, Western New Mexico, VCU, then Colorado State on the 20th. You're at Colorado State. So you get another week off. You get 10 days off there, I think, and then it's the heart of Mountain West Conference play. So you've got 2 non-con left. Ed, I'm gonna let you go. I appreciate you joining us because I know what ESPN probably thought might have been a Super Bowl preview is no longer a Super Bowl preview. I'm looking forward to watching it with The Simpsons. I am very shocked that I didn't see any Juan Soto comments. I'm going to say this because I saw Ronnie in there. Astronomical deal that makes no sense to me. I don't agree with it. I had read that the Yankees, with all of their rules and whatnot, the clean shavenness, didn't permit some of his family members in certain areas. Steve Cohen got wind of this, picked him up, and called him. Because of that, he took $5 million less. And I will say this, it's because they beat out the Yankees that I'm actually happy. I don't really like him as a player. He's got to figure out how to hit around Lindor with Lindor, because he and Judge backed each other up. And that's, I think, why Juan Carlo had a really good year this year. And Juan Carlo Stanton was phenomenal in the postseason.
One of the best years he's had in a while.
Yeah. And again, you're talking about an NL MVP. Ed, do you have any final thoughts?
You know what, Ryan? No, great show today. Hey, thanks. Always happy to join you. So hopefully better things. We'll hear something maybe hopefully by the end of the week about the new football coach.
Hopefully we have news about a new football coach. Yes, he is a horrible outfielder. I don't think he's good. His bat's a different story. Doesn't play defense like Francisco Lindor. Hopefully we'll have some news on a new head football coach. Again, no Lobo men's basketball this week. Let me take a look real quick before I get out of here. Just on the women's schedule. Got to show some love. Maybe I'll bug JJ, have him come on, talk a little bit of women's hoops. They play South Carolina. Nope. No. That's November. They play Pepperdine on the 15th, which is Sunday, I believe, at 2:00. So they don't have a game this week either. So yeah, they lost to New Mexico State twice. All right. Well, Ed, I appreciate you joining me. Lobo Fence is 1970, the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs. Eric Malton, Rick Thompson, your son, Nick Nunez, Jacob Neff. I'm Ryan Tamori. This is the Pit Press Live. Thanks to Ned James. Thanks to Greg Archeleta. Much appreciated. Probably do a show Wednesday then. See where we are at. I'm going to answer this question. You guys plan to incorporate other sports? I would love to. It's what we did at the Daily Lobo. I tried to have a tennis player on when we first started this, and I was told he doesn't speak English well, which I thought was a chicken shit response. Yeah, we try to do that. I love baseball. We just focus on football and basketball because at least we have the most access. I've tried to talk a little bit more national stuff. Maybe I'll get somebody to talk college football playoff this week. But yeah, and to all our listeners, again, we appreciate you. Thank you very much. We will talk to you Wednesday. Everybody have a safe Monday night. Enjoy the Cowboy Bengal game. I'm going to be personally watching it on Disney Plus because of The Simpsons. Nothing beats 90s Homer. So honk if you're horny. All the little references I have. Ed, thank you. Enjoy the football game. We'll talk to everybody later.
Thanks, Ryan.